Welcome to the Influential Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Duncan, and my dream is to inspire moms to pursue their goals and help them make a difference in their world. I'm a mom of 2 young boys, a wife to my high school sweetheart, and a lawyer. This show is a place to hear stories of moms working hard to have a positive influence in their profession or their community, and sometimes both, even as they juggle their responsibilities at work, at home, and to their children. You'll get tangible, practical tips for managing the chaotic world of motherhood and work. Come along as we hear these stories and feel inspired to step outside of our comfort zone as leaders and as a positive force within our communities. I believe that moms can change the world. Okay, so I'm here today on the podcast with a high school friend. It's been a long time, but Brooklyn Decker. Thank you for being here on the podcast, and I'm excited for you to share your story about your career and all the things that you've been able to do in your career, and now how motherhood has been intertwined into all of that. So, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to talk with you again. I know it's been a long time, so it's good to hear your voice.
Yes, you too. And I'm sure most people know who you are, but why don't you give us a brief introduction, because you have a lot of titles associated with your name: model, actress, entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've done so far in your career.
Perfect. Yes. So I have done several different things. I wouldn't say I've done a lot, but I've done several things. So I started out, grew up in North Carolina with you, of course, and I started out as a model in New York. I graduated high school and moved to New York literally the week after. And then I transitioned into acting shortly thereafter. And I'm currently still an actor. I work on a show called Grace and Frankie on Netflix, and we're now
Love it.
Thank you. And then about 2 years ago, I started a company called Finery. It was when my son, who's now 3, was a teeny tiny baby, and I think I was looking for something that I could really take ownership over, because as a model and actor, you're constantly at the mercy of someone else giving you a job, which is normal, but I think the harder thing about sort of the entertainment route is that you can't really, like, work doesn't necessarily warrant work or success, like it's a lot of luck. And so I really wanted something I could take ownership over. And when I was looking at sort of all these tools out there in the ether, so to speak, there are apps to, especially as moms, you'll get this, like apps to look at our baby's baby monitor from literally across the country, or control our thermostat from afar, or control our mail, control our music, manage everything in our life, our travel, etc., but nothing's out there to actually manage our wardrobe. And while it seems trivial when you think about sort of the resources that women spend on their wardrobe and the time we spend on our wardrobe, it's quite literally more than our education, which was pretty shocking. We discovered that as we were doing research. And so my girlfriend and I started the company, and we really wanted to create a management system that helped women get their time and money back.
I love that. And what a success it has been. So you were coming up on this new, business model and this business idea as you were also entering motherhood, because is it right that were you pregnant when this was kind of all coming together, and or your oldest child had just been born? Is that how this was all coming together?
That is right. I was pregnant when it was all coming together, and then he was born, and we launched when he was, I think, 6 months old. So we launched we were in beta for a while before then. So we launched when my son, was 6 months old.
Okay. So you were pregnant, you're entering motherhood, you're starting a new business. Did you have am I going to be able to handle all of this moment? Or was it just kind of like one foot in front of the other, just keep on going kind of mentality?
It's funny, both. And I still do. Like, I still have that moment at least once a week. And the solution to that is just putting one foot in front of the other. Yeah. And I think, there are moments where you're like, what in the world have I done? What have I gotten myself into? And whether that be, it's usually professionally related, but it can be personally related as well. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so in over my head here. Like, at times, because as a woman, I think we really are, like, you think about our friendships, and again, not to generalize, and I certainly don't want to male bash, because my husband has friendships that are incredibly precious to him, but I can safely say that I invest more time in my friendships, and I think females in general invest more time in their relationships than males do, right? So as a woman, you just are naturally more overextended in your friendships and your relationship and with motherhood and your job. And I think for me specifically, I've sort of always worked with a chip on my shoulder, feeling like I have something to prove. And so I think I sort of work, that much harder to prove that I deserve to be somewhere, which is my own issue. I need to figure that out. But I think as a result, I'm constantly like, oh my gosh, how do I get through this? What was I thinking? Can I do it? Maybe people are right. Maybe I can't do it. And it is just like one email at a time, one phone call at a time, one project at a time, one day at a time. And it's all worth it because it's so enjoyable. But I did have those days in the beginning, and I still have those days.
Yeah. So you and your husband, Andy Roddick, are very, very busy, just by nature of the work that you both do. How have you managed that, the schedules that you both have, the travel that you both have, and now you have 2 children. And so what is your kind of key to success in managing your travel schedules and managing all the logistics that come with parenting?
It is a logistical nightmare. I mean, we are really fortunate, as you can relate to. We're really fortunate in that we do have a nanny who is wonderful, who helps kind of have our back when we can't quite be there, or if we have to miss a breakfast or a drop off or whatever it is. And so I know that that's not normal, and we're really lucky to be in that situation. So we do have a wonderful nanny who helps us. That being said, I think the 2 of us, we've sort of made it a point, and we failed on this, but we've made it a point to always have one parent home, right? And there have been a couple of days in my son's life where both of us, either like I'm landing at midnight and my husband took off at 10 p.m. So like there, one of us can't put our son down or out of town.
Right.
But generally we make it so that one of us is kind of always home. And I also think that we have been really deliberate and really good about having each other's back when the other person needs to pursue something, and whether that be professional or personal. Like Andy will say, "Hon, I got to get away for 2 days and I just want to golf with my buddies." And I'm like, "Great, go have fun, go do it." And I think that is really important, like taking that time. And for me, that's work, like to have independent time away from my family to work for a day, going to New York or whatever it is. That for me is really, it kind of fills my cup, And so I think we just have to support each other, and that's totally what we do. And we pick up the slack for each other. And again, it's kind of, a week at a time. And, for example, this week, Andy flew to Austin. So we are based in Austin, but spent some time in Charlotte to be close to family. And so he flew to Austin on Tuesday, but decided he was going on Monday. So he's like, I'm just going to fly to Austin tomorrow. I have a couple of meetings. I'm going to go. I'm going to do it. He originally wasn't going to because of holidays. He's like, I should really be there. So he flew there, and then he came back today. So there's just a lot of back and forth, a lot of sort of wrangling logistics and schedules. But I think this is such a long-winded answer, but I think the main thing is we don't keep score. We're like, go, do your thing. I'll be here. I'll hold down the fort. I'll be here when you get back. And we just do that for each other constantly.
Which is so important, because I think that it would be easy if we get caught up in traditional roles and that mindset of, well, a mom is supposed to do, by, old fashioned traditional standards, supposed to do these things, and the dad is supposed to do these things. And when we go against those traditional, very old fashioned traditional models, then it would be hard not to keep score. So I think that's good that you guys are so flexible and respectful of the things, your individual goals and the things that you're wanting to do.
We try to be. And I mean, what do you guys do? Because you guys are similar. You guys have such busy schedules and demanding jobs. Like, how do you guys do it?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. I mean, my husband has his own law practice now, and I am an assistant dean at a law school, and so we just kind of look at our schedules each day. And the hardest thing I think for us is when a kid is sick, because, we both really need to be there, but we look at our schedules and we just say, okay, can we split the day in half? And, I'll go in the morning because I have these meetings, and you can do your morning meetings from the phone or, whatever. And I mean, thank goodness for technology. I think if we didn't have technology, we'd be in a totally different situation, but, I'm just grateful that, he can often work from home and I can often work from home. And we just try to take it really often one day at a time. And we try to be really respectful of each other and not saying that there's something that we have to do unless we really have to do it. So, I'm not going to choose to stay late for all the after work meetings that I might have. I'm going to pick and choose. And so I'm really careful about prioritizing. And that's not only for Damon, but also for our kids, because I want to be here for them. And so I've just learned that life will go on at work if I'm not, and I'm, not going to lose my job if I don't go to every single after work event. And Damon has, tried to do the same with his responsibilities and trying to say, I'm going to come home and be with the kids and us all be together. And then sometimes we end up working together on the couch at night, and that's okay.
That's exactly how we do it. And it's interesting. I think that's so important that you take a step back and say, I don't have to go to every after work event. And the reason why is because the woman who is either in law school or maybe she's an associate and she's trying to work her way up in a firm can see that you are doing it in a way where you can both manage your workload and also balance a family. And I think it's so important because I think there are so few examples of that in the workplace, just generally speaking now. I mean, now we're seeing more women in the C-suite than ever, but I think that's very recent, right? And so for more women to do that, they need to see examples. And so for you to say like, look, you can prioritize both. And yes, like sometimes you won't be at everything work related and sometimes you may miss one of your children's soccer game and that's okay. Like I think it's a really responsible thing to do because I think without that, it's not that if you don't see it, you can't be it, but it sure does make it a lot easier when you can see it. You know what I mean?
It absolutely does. Yes. And I think, like you said, it's important for women coming behind us, to young women, to see, who maybe aren't even, married yet, but for them to know that it doesn't have to look a certain way where they can only have one piece of the pie, where I don't want women to think they have to choose between their career and being a mom, because they don't have to. And they might not, again, be able to go to everything, or they could, but then, there's going to have to be some give and take at home. But they need to know that they can have it all. And I think that it's not going to be perfect, but they can have it all.
And they have a choice. And they're not relegated to a certain situation because, it hasn't been done before them. And I think it's just really important to be given that choice. Like I do want to do it all, or maybe I don't want to have a family, or maybe I don't want to have a career, whatever that is, to know that they have a choice. I think it's really important.
Absolutely. Yes. When you were preparing for Finery and you were pregnant and you were, then you had a newborn and you were getting ready to launch, what was your biggest fear as you were embarking on all of this new part of your life all at once? What was what was the most scary thing to you in all of that?
Oh my goodness. I mean, there was so much. I think just embarking on the unknown. And I think specifically in business, just not knowing the ropes, not putting in my 10,000 hours, so to speak, that is scary because you really are learning on the job. And there's a lot that's exciting about that, but there's also, obviously it's a tall order, And so I think learning on the job was a challenge. And then of course, more than anything, like the biggest priority for me is my kids. So with Hank, it's like, am I failing him? Is he getting enough breast milk? Is he getting breast milk? Like all the things that you obsess over in the early days that when you have a child who's a little older, you're like, ugh, who cares? Like fed is best. But like, when you have a 3-month-old or a 6-month-old or whatever, you're just obsessing over like, are they sleeping? Are they on a schedule? Are you pumping? All of that. And so I think you get caught up in the minutia of what you're supposed to be doing. And I think I think it's important, of course, but I also think it could be really distracting and really weigh on you. And so for me, I think in the beginning, it was like, am I just doing everything as a mom I'm supposed to be doing? Am I doing everything for this business I'm supposed to be doing? And I don't think it was one specific fear. It just generally was like, am I adding up to be enough for everyone? And frankly, like, I don't think in the traditional sense that I was or am, but I think that I'm doing my best. And I think that, I look at, for example, my mom. My mom was a critical care nurse. She's now retired, but like literally saving lives in the ICU. And she missed soccer games and she missed all sorts of things I did, but I never once resented her for that because I was so proud of the work she was doing.
Yeah.
And I just respected her for it. And I think that goes the same for friends of mine who had mothers who stayed home. They were like, I just respected and loved that my mom was there every day when I got home and loved that she was the one to pick me up. And I think that no matter how you're doing it, I think if you're approaching sort of all of it, whether it's your business or your children, with just love, like tons and tons and tons of love, you are creating a safe and good environment for both to flourish. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the most important thing. You know, I mean, that's what it's all about is making sure that it's a safe and warm and loving environment.
Yep.
So when you were preparing to launch Finery, I know you said, it was the kind of learning the ropes. Did you have formal training in this, or how did you get involved in learning how to be a business owner as you were in it? I guess kind of learning and doing it at the same time. What was your training?
This is going to sound crazy, but Google was my mentor.
I love that.
Google was my mentor. I would Google business acronyms like, what's LTV? What's my CAC? What's this? How can I optimize SEO? Like I was just Googling everything because I had no background in it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I also had a really, really, really good team around me. And my business partner, our CEO, came from media, but had still run her own company. So like I had people around me who I could ask questions, and I had investors whom I could approach with questions. And I think I just was very candid, and people knew this was my first foray into business. And I think I was very honest with the fact that, look, like I don't necessarily have the experience, but I definitely have the ability to learn, and I'm hungry and I'm curious, and I don't come to the table with the most experience, but I'm definitely going to come to the table the most well-read, right? And so that was like the one thing I could control. And so I just researched and I asked a lot of questions. And I think that that certainly doesn't make up for lack of experience, right? Because there's no better education than actual experience. But I will say in the last sort of 3 years that we've been doing this, asking those questions and having those conversations and being able to say to your team or people you've hired, hey, look, can you show me the ropes here? Can you actually explain this to me? I'm not quite sure what the protocol is here. That not only does it, I think, strengthen the bond you have with your team, because I think there's a level of honesty that is really healthy there, but I also think it makes you better at your job.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I mean, you can find anything on Google. So I love that.
You can.
You really can. It's a little bit scary, but you know, it's also so helpful. And I think it's really empowered a lot of moms and a lot of women who might otherwise, not have the setup to be able to do things. They have the resources that they need without having to go take, classes in person somewhere. They can learn it at night on their computers sometimes.
It's true. It's true. Absolutely.
Which is so awesome. So tell us a little bit about Finery, because we've referenced it and you kind of gave us the summary in the beginning, but tell us exactly what it is so that women can know why it would be useful for them and why they should be using it.
Well, I love that. Thank you. So basically how it works, and it's patented technology, but what you do is you log in with your email. And the reason why you log in with your email is because when you think about shopping online, and this is a tool for the online shopper, when you think about shopping online, you get an order confirmation, right? Whether it be from J.Crew or ShopUp, wherever it is that you shop, you get an order confirmation. And what does that confirmation do? It just sits in your inbox. It doesn't serve you well. There's nothing you can do with it. And so what we do is we get all of those order confirmations and we pull those items into an online wardrobe for you. So when you open up Finery, you'll have what looks like a shopping website, but instead of actually shopping for inventory, it's your clothing. And that process is patented. So it's all tech-based. So you shouldn't have to manually enter any items unless you bought them in store. And if you bought them in store, we have a browser extension that works like a Pinterest button. Basically, it follows you. If you can Google it, you can find it. So if you're in Target, for example, and you see a polka dot blouse that you buy, you can Google Target polka dot blouse. And as long as you can see that image, you can, with one click, add it to your wardrobe. And the reason why that's important is because when you think about, for example, we had our son's school had a holiday party last week. And the first thing you think about when you see that invitation come in for the holiday party is, okay, what am I going to wear to this thing? Well, first of all, can I go? Do I have a sitter? And second of all, what am I going to wear to this thing? Right.
The logistical nightmare comes first. And
absolutely. And then after that, you're like, okay, do I have anything in my closet? I don't think I've gone in there in months. Right. And so the problem is that women are spending redundantly. We found that women are only wearing 20% of their wardrobe. And we think that's in large part because they can't actually see what they have. And so women will go and spend and buy something new. And then they'll be rummaging through their closet and say, oh, I already own that black dress that I just bought last week, you know? And so we said, if we can actually show you what you own, you're probably less likely to shop redundantly. And so we basically consider ourselves like a wardrobe concierge. So when you buy something online, the return windows for each store, they vary and they change. And that's intentional because it's meant to change all the time so that you miss a return, so that you don't return an item and you have to keep it. And I can't tell you how many people I know who are like, I bought this pair of jeans and they didn't fit and I forgot to return it. And so it's just sitting with tags in my closet, right? Like it's a waste of time. Right. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of all of it. And so what we do is we send you return notifications, right? So we say you have 3 days left to return these jeans you bought online. We also let you know when you open up the app, and it's both on desktop and the app, we let you know, hey, it's raining outside. Maybe try to avoid suede shoes today. Like we really just want to be sort of that wardrobe assistant for you so that in the morning when you're waking up, you're not spending the 30 minutes a day it takes a woman to get dressed. Or when you're sitting at your carpool line waiting to pick up your kids from school and you have a girls' night that week, and you can actually create a look and figure out what you're going to wear and what you're going to wear in that time instead of going in your closet and rummaging through your stuff that weekend, you know? And so our whole thing is like, let's save women time and money by showing them what they have. And then if you want to shop, fine. You're not discouraging you from shopping. Just buy something that you don't already own. Don't buy your 6th pair of skinny jeans, you know, like just be more strategic about your spending.
I love that. And it's funny because you're talking about the jeans. I actually have 2 pairs of the exact same pair of jeans. And it was because I didn't realize I already, you know, had that exact same pair, and I went shopping and I was like, I love these jeans. Well, of course I do because I already have them. And I came home and I was like, oh my gosh, like same color, like the wash is the same and everything. And I thought, wow, that money could have been put towards something that looked a little different.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's so many women have said that. They're like, I have 10 white t-shirts and I forgot that I had them because they're stuffed in the bottom of a drawer somewhere. Yes. Like it's such a, and again, like we're not telling you not to shop. A lot of our users love shopping, but they like doing it in a way where they're not shopping for the same things over and over again.
I love it. So you have all these different ways of getting your clothes in. Does it match like shoes and other things too, or how does it pull a whole outfit together for you?
Yes. So we get all of your wardrobe related items. So if you bought your shoes online, your bags online, earrings, whatever, socks, whatever it may be, we get all of that into your wardrobe. And then we actually just started with our basically tech first approach to styling. And so now what we do is we send you a push notification with a look. So with an outfit based on clothes that you have, with your actual clothing. And that's, you know, if you look at sort of tools of the past that have tried to do this, they are never sending you clothing or looks with your clothing, right? So you're like, great, that's a really cool outfit, but I don't own any items in that look, right? Like that's really beautiful, but that doesn't serve me. And so we're actually sending you push notifications with looks. We're sending you push notifications with weather alerts. Like we're really giving you a service, and so much so that we're free right now. We are pre-revenue, so we're not monetizing. We absolutely have a path to revenue, but we're not there yet. We basically were like, you know what, let's be a utility for women. Let's be an inventory management system. Let's help get them dressed. Let's help them shop. Let's help them return their things. Let's help style them. And eventually let's help them sell their stuff on the site. And so we see ourselves as sort of interacting with every part of your wardrobe at every point of its life cycle. And again, just with so much time and money spent on clothing, it's about time there be a management tool for it.
And more time to be a mom, right?
Exactly.
So amazing.
Exactly.
Well, that is brilliant. Congratulations on pulling all of this together. And it's definitely moving in the right direction from the sounds of, you know, the new things you're adding onto it, and
thank you.
And how all the things that it's pulling together for women to save time and money. Do you feel like being a business owner with, you know, embarking on this this app and creating Finery and all that has come along with that. Has that changed your approach to your other work in acting and modeling? Do you feel like you approach that differently now that you're a business owner?
Totally. I think I sort of view it with a little bit more empathy, like sort of, it's funny because we're kind of approaching this whole influencer marketing thing right now and trying to figure out like, how do we approach influencers, and we're a startup, so we don't have a budget, and what can we provide them to help them, promote us? And like, it's so interesting because I've never been on this side of it. Yeah. And so I can really understand where companies are coming from now. And I think I just have a sort of a more complete picture of what business in general looks like and I know that what I'm doing is sort of niche in that it's kind of in entertainment and it's in tech, but still those things really work together. And there's a lot of synergy there with a lot of different companies. And so for me to sort of have a behind the scenes peeled back version of both, I think just makes my decision making more informed. It gives me a greater understanding of like what potential clients' needs would be from an actor standpoint. I understand what they're trying to sell more. I think there's just an overall sort of more whole, complete understanding of both sides of the picture.
Yeah. I can imagine that's definitely the case. So how do you recharge and take care of yourself in the midst of all of the things that you have going on? Travel and acting and Finery, and motherhood, you have to take care of yourself. So tell me about what you do to do that.
Okay, so I'm really bad. And I recently kind of took a stance publicly and I got some interesting feedback for it. But I basically said self-care is crap. And here let me explain that. So people have been asking, and it's funny actually, my gynecologist of all people was like, so what are you doing for self-care? And I said, working? Like, I don't know.
That's fair.
And they're like, that's not self-care. And so my point is, I think that there's such an emphasis on self-care now. And I think it's important. Of course it's important. Of course we need to take care of ourselves, and we can't let ourselves sort of fall by the wayside. That being said, I also think that delayed gratification is not valued enough. And I think that it's completely okay to be in a phase of your life where you're grinding and you're exhausted and you're in the throes of motherhood and you're in the throes of starting a business or doing a career transition or running a household, whatever it may be, but you are just in the throes of life and work and family and all of it. And it's okay to live in that discomfort, right? Because that right. means that change is happening. And that means that something's beautiful happening. And frankly, my life is chaotic. I do have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old and a job, and I'm acting, but I love it all. Like, it all is exhausting, but I love every piece of it. And they don't all work synergistically all the time, but I think that's okay. And so it's funny, I said that recently and they're like, no, we have to tell people that they can take a day off and they can do self-care. And I think that's absolutely true. Like, if you need a day to check out and sort of, get back to yourself and figure out what your goals are and what you need, I think that's hugely important. But I also think that for me, adding self-care as a box to tick on my list of things to do just made me feel like I was failing myself.
Yep.
And so I'm like, you know what? Self-care is on the back burner. And right now, like, self-care is a 10-minute snuggle with my son before he goes to bed. Or self-care is responding to every single email that came into me today. Like little things like that feel good. And again, I think it's okay to put true self-care off for a little while, as long as you know that time of chaos is temporary and that you're grinding to get towards an end goal.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think that self-care can be defined as doing whatever it takes to feel like you're back in balance. And if that means trying to get through all your emails so that you're not laying awake in the middle of the night thinking about the emails, then go do the emails, I mean, like it's whatever it takes, I think, for you to feel like things are in balance. And so sometimes that is doing more work. What someone would say is, well, you're just working more. Well, yes, because that's off balance right now. And that the pressure that I'm feeling from, whatever that is work-wise that's hanging over my head is what is draining me. So I have to pour into that in order for it to go away.
You're exactly right. Yes.
I mean, I think you're right. I think that sometimes in that scenario, if I were to walk away and be like, well, I'm just going to go to, take a day off and do yoga all day, then that would only stress me out more because the emails, the emails didn't go away. And so it's like, now I'm even more off balance.
Yes.
And so, yes, I completely agree with you that sometimes it's okay for it to be chaos and for the self-care to be, not a day off in the spa.
Exactly.
It's that is completely okay. And sometimes it's 10 minutes of snuggles and that's what it takes and that's what you need. So
that's exactly right.
For me, this is the thing that is probably not the right, quote unquote, right thing to say. But for me, self-care is making sure that I do have the balance of spending time with my children and having that quality time, but I have to have the balance of going to work. I'm a better mom because I work. And I know that's not the case for everyone, but for me, that is self-care. Working is self-care for me because it makes me a better mom when I'm at home. So
I totally agree with that. For you, when you're with your kids and like, how do you define quality time? I guess my question is, do you set specific parameters around that? Like, is it a finite amount of time? Is it a no devices rule? Like, are there specific rules, or for you, is that fluid?
I don't try to put time around it because I really believe that we can have 20 minutes of, reading together or playing on the floor together. That is just as valuable as 2 hours of just kind of, sitting in the same room. If I were working. So for me, it's really a rule around not doing work while I'm with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll pull out my phone and I'll have an email that like has to get a response right then and there. But I really try not to get my laptop out and do the emails and do the work while they're in the room. And so for me, it's really a quality rule, I guess, over quantity.
Yep. I hear you. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I want to ask about authenticity. And I think one thing that people love about you is your authenticity online and your authenticity around motherhood. I mean, as we've, had this discussion tonight, and just how you relay motherhood and the trials and tribulations that come along with it. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to be so authentic with your online presence, even though you are in such a, I guess, public light with a lot of followers or kind of a big social media presence that doesn't seem to intimidate you in the sense of being authentic? And how have you managed to find that balance where you're able to be authentic in a way that is very, I think, important to people and to other women that are watching you?
First of all, thank you. I love that you think that. I will say, so it's funny. I guess the best way to answer this is to talk about sort of why I started on social media in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I started on Twitter. It was like 2009. So it was sort of the early days of Twitter. And the reason I started on Twitter is because at that time I was exclusively modeling. I hadn't really started acting yet. And so think about it. 2009, I think I was 22 or 21, and I had only modeled. And at that time, aside from Sports Illustrated, who, like, thank God for Sports Illustrated, they actually cared about the woman, right? And they wanted you to have a diary and talk about your story and your upbringing and your name and your age and all these things that you think are so silly, but no other publication would publish your name, cared about who you were, cared about what you wanted to feel like or look like. And essentially at that time, again, outside of Sports Illustrated, when I was on the page of a magazine, was sort of the figment of someone else's imagination and not at all myself. Like, I grew up in North Carolina. I, am like a sloppy, messy person, just sort of like stumbling through life. And that's okay. But that was not sort of what was depicted at the time. And so and this is really long-winded, but when Twitter came along, I was so excited because I thought, oh my gosh, I can totally reject that person who is not at all me, although fun, not at all representative of who I am. And I can absolutely be myself. And what a cool platform to be able to just like fully be myself. And so for me, it was sort of, for a lot of people now, I think it drives their career, right? It's like how they've established a career or a following or an aesthetic. And for me, it was kind of like a liberation from my career. It was like, yay, here's the real version of me. Yeah. And so the same sort of goes to Instagram. Like my approach from the beginning has been like, yes, on screen, I get to wear beautiful clothing and have my hair and makeup done and totally create an unrealistic reality, right? Like I'm sort of creating a very heightened sense of realism on television. That's, again, not at all representative of me. How exciting that I have this platform to be completely unapologetic and gross and totally open and honest about my experience. And so I think that's why I love it so much. And it's never been deliberate. Like, it's never been like, I'm going to post an authentic post today, or I need to keep it real. It's just been like, it has been sort of my getaway from my work. And so it's funny though, like I am really as open as I am with my experience. I'm super private, and that I don't post for like weeks at a time. I won't post outings with my family very often or stories very often, but occasionally like the really gross thing happens with my kids where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. I know other moms will totally get this. I have to share it. And so in a weird way, I'm really private. I don't show my kids' faces. There's a lot I don't share. But I think when I do share, it's just because something really crazy is happening or something really cool is happening, or it's just a genuine moment that I want to share. And so I guess my point is that, a lot of people, and this is something that I think I've now realized, again, on the business side, like I'll talk to influencers and I'm like, can you guys post for Finery? And they'll say like, oh, well, I have a social media calendar and it's booked for the next 2 months. And it's really interesting. Like, people don't understand that, like, there are posting calendars for a lot of individuals, for a lot of companies. Like, it's incredibly thoughtful and deliberate, which makes sense when like that's the core of your business, right?
Right.
For me, it's like the next day I'll be like, oh my gosh, did I have too much wine and post that ridiculous thing that like it's always just been very real. And I think, again, because it's just been a departure from my job, which is fun.
Yeah. Which that is fun. I happened to catch your story about the bears that broke into the cars, and that was so funny, just because it, like, the whole saga, it was like, what is happening? It was so I'm sure that was one of those that you just thought, well, let's post this as it's happening.
Yes.
Which was fun. So.
Yes. Like I ran out and by the way, this had not been the first time this had happened. So like I ran out, it was very early in the morning, and I saw that the car doors were open. So I knew immediately that bears had gotten into the car. And because that wasn't the first time it had happened, and it's happened a lot sort of where we spent some time up in the mountains in North Carolina. It's happened to a lot of our neighbors. And so we just knew that it was something that went on. And so when I saw all the car doors open, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so absurd. Like, who gets their car broken into by a bear? That I just had to film it. And it was so funny. Like, there were bear prints on the seats, and there was like a Yeti cooler that had my kids' old yogurt inside that they had tried to break into. It was just such a bizarre, weird thing. And like, how cool to have a medium where we can share that instantly.
Sure,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's real life, which is fun. Well, I have a few rapid questions because I know we need to wrap up. So I want to ask you just kind of your gut reaction to these questions that I have. And then I have one big question that we'll end with.
Okay, perfect.
So we have, because a lot of folks who are listening are probably North Carolinians. So what's your favorite place to eat in Charlotte?
Oh, I just went to Stagione's for the first time, and it was delicious. It was delicious. It's like Myers Park area, but it's funny. Like, I grew up in Matthews and hadn't been back to Charlotte. I mean, I'd been back to Charlotte to visit my family, but hadn't spent a lot of time in Charlotte until this year. And so I feel like I'm rediscovering the city. I'm rediscovering restaurants and finding out sort of this new food scene that popped up since I left. And it's so exciting to kind of rediscover or discover the city that you grew up in. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very good. So that's a new place that I'll have to try out. That sounds good.
It's delicious.
What's the most used emoji on your phone?
Oh, probably the sobbing one, because I cry when I'm really happy.
Yeah.
I'm not like a sad crier. I'm like very stoic when I'm sad, and when I'm really happy, I cry. And so oftentimes when I'm sharing things, or my mom shares stories, or I share video of the kids, it's like so cute that it makes me cry.
great.
So
yeah.
I share the sobbing emoji often.
Yes, I love that. So what do you listen to on your phone? Are you a music listener? Do you listen to books? Do you listen to podcasts?
I do some of the podcasts, though I'm not great at it. And I do music. I'm like a big music person.
Oh, what's your most recent music download or listen that you have?
I mean, it's everything from like Led Zeppelin to Post Malone to Dave Matthews Band. I mean, it runs the gamut.
Yeah, just good music.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good music. I love that. Okay, so last couple of questions. If a mom is listening who wants to start a company, what would be your number one? And she's stuck because she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how. I've got a little bit under my belt as far as what my next steps are, but I feel stuck and I'm scared. What would be your number one tip for that mom to get the ball rolling and move things forward?
Find a co-founder, because on those days when you are feeling stuck or you're feeling like you can't move forward, and you will hit those days often, it really helps to have someone else either push you along or pick up the slack when you don't feel like you can.
Yeah.
I think it makes it fun too. Your failures are with someone, and you experience your successes with someone. And I feel like it's sort of like, it's kind of like entrepreneurship light, like you're you're doing it, but you have a partner in crime to do it with. And I think that's really helpful, especially if you're a first time entrepreneur.
Yeah. Probably makes it feel a little safer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What's on the horizon in 2019 for Brooklyn Decker?
Oh, that's a good question. So I go back to shooting Grace and Frankie in January. So I'll be back there in a couple of weeks. And then we're doing our Series A. We're raising right now for Finery. So we'll see how that grows in the next year. But yeah, basically more filming and more work. And my kids are the best ever. So more kids and husband and all that good stuff.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I wish you the very, very best in 2019. And thank you for sharing your insights into motherhood and working and balancing yet not balancing at all, because I think there's no such thing as real balance.
Totally
it's just
agree.
Doing the best we can. So
Yes.
Thank you for sharing all of this on the podcast. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Fun.
It's so good to catch up with you again.
And where can everybody find you online very quickly? I want to be sure they can find you.
Yes. So I'm Brooklyn Decker, at Brooklyn Decker on both Twitter and Instagram. And then we are at Your Finery on all social. And then it's finery.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Brooklyn. This was fun.
Thank you for having me. Good to talk with you.
You too. Thanks for listening to this inspiring episode of Influential Motherhood with guest Brooklyn Decker. Don't forget to subscribe to the show so you'll have new episodes delivered straight to your device every week. For bonus episodes and extra inspiration, join me over in the Influential Motherhood community at www.melissaduncan.com/join. I'd also love to connect with you online to chat more about how moms can change the world, and you can find me at Melissa Duncan JD, or follow the behind the scenes of the podcast at Influential Motherhood. See you next week.